well, I guess there was one big change in your work in recent years with Wikidata um, getting into our lives and kind of changing a lot of the work that all of us have been doing. So, can you tell us a bit about how you started incorporating Wikidata and maybe give us some examples of the projects that you've been producing at the university?
Yeah, so Wikidata sort of like was a bit of a game changer because you've got Wikipedia, which is very well known, but it's the text in it is not really easily something that you can parse, that a computer can read and understand and ask questions of. And then Wikidata came along, what, sort of 7 and a bit years ago, as the young
Yeah.
kid, the young kid on the block. Wikipedia's cooler younger sister, and a lot more powerful in a way, because you can ask questions of the data, the information stored in Wikidata, and it's not just information from Wikipedia, it's from information from other databases, and you can start asking questions of data that links to other data as well, and so you can look at the direct relationships but also the indirect relationships. And it was really exciting, the Gene Wiki project, and how they illustrated how you could sort of look at proteins that were connected to genes and chemical compounds that created pharmaceutical products, and look at the relationships between the genes, the diseases, the pharmaceutical products, and the chemical compounds, and look at all of those relationships and look for areas of future further inquiry to build more research that could then be added in to Wikidata and Wikipedia, and it was quite a powerful tool. So how my own job sort of started looking at Wikidata was that I started working with a guy called Navino Evans.
Yeah.
Shani. So he's a sort of he's a maths tutor by day, but he's a Wikipedia contributor and a Wikidata devotee who's created this website called Histropedia, which is the idea.
The students are going to meet Nav as well. So.
Oh, brilliant! Because I'll let Nav explain a bit more about Histropedia, but it basically creates visually dynamic timelines from information in Wikipedia and Wikidata. And it's something you can do really easily in minutes. So myself and him were invited to go along to a conference called Repository Fringe to talk to all these people that had all these institutional repositories and see if they would want to look at Wikidata to share their repository data into a linked open data format and make it much more accessible for other people to engage with and to explore the direct and indirect connections through the Wikidata query service, like Learning Sparkle. And we did a presentation, and someone that was there was a guy called Joe Cornelli, who was a course leader on this program at the University of Edinburgh called the Design Informatics. And they get students on that course to learn about data science through engaging with real-world data sets. They think teaching data science is not really communicated very well if you do it too much in the abstract, if it's too theoretical in nature. So the idea that he had was to host a data fair in every October of that course program. So it's like a 1 or 2 year postgraduate course, and they get the students together in October, and there's about 45 master's students on that course, and they invite about 15 what they call problem holders. And these problem holders each have a data set, a real world data set that they want the students to help them with. And they pitch in 3 minutes what their data set is and a problem that they have that they want the students to solve, whether it's visualizing it in engaging ways or working with the data and surfacing it in another data set, in another database somehow. But actually, essentially, just they wanted the students to tell engaging stories with each of these data sets. And it might be a data set from the National Library of Scotland. It might be a data set from the Scottish Government. It might be a data set from the National Records of Scotland or a completely different university. But we get all these people in the room, we pitch a data set, and the students then spend the next hour or two speed dating with these problem holders to decide who they want to work with over the course of about a 6-week project. And normally they're working groups of 3. And each time I've been invited along, I've pitched a data set that the University of Edinburgh has that hasn't been really well. It's well thought of, but it hasn't really been done. No one's really done any work with it since 2003. So there was an opportunity to work with this data set that we weren't really exploring. And it was the Survey of Scottish Witchcraft, which I could probably show you if we share the screen.
Yes, let's add your screen. Just a second. Here it is.
So this is the data set I was invited along to pitch. And it is a database of all the recorded information that we know about from the witch trials and the witch hunts that took place between 1563 and 1736 in Scotland. So all these records were put together in a Microsoft Access database. And you can download the Microsoft Access database. It does have some interactive graphs, number of accused by year, but they're not really terribly engaging visualizations. And the interactive map feature had stopped working years ago, and it wasn't really very intuitive. But this was an incredible body of work that was put together by Professor Julian Goodare and Dr. Louise Yeoman, and a lot of other researchers as well. Amazing body of work, 300 fields separated in 30 different tables, but people weren't engaging with it, we thought, in a very 2020 way. And we thought this should be a lot more surfaced so that people can use and explore it. So we just asked the students on the design informatics course, could they download the Microsoft Access database, take the information in an Excel or CSV file, and start analyzing the data and processing it so that it could be shared in Wikidata as linked open data. And let's see if I can see some of my slides. So this is some of the slides that I've used in the past, importing 3,219 accused witches into Wikidata. So that's what we asked them to do. And we worked with the students. It was a big job. We worked with the students 1 year to create items of data about each accused witch, pulling in all the biographical information we could find from the original Survey of Scottish Witchcraft database. And then in the following year, we pitched the same data set and asked the students to pull in all the information about the trials and link every accused witch to every witch trial they were involved in. And then we asked the students again to create items of data about all the judges, the sheriffs, the lairds, and all the other people that were involved in the witch trials as well. So not just the accused, but the people that were actually judging and deciding if they were guilty or not guilty. And we just wanted to see if by taking it and adding it to the linked open data cloud, as Sir Tim Berners-Lee says, is what you could then do by querying that data and visualizing that data. I'm just going to move on. And then, yeah, hold on, skip. Here's what the data fair looked like, and 13 to 15 data sets. And this is what the course leader said. A common critique of data science classes said that the examples they were working with were artificial, and they wanted to teach data science in a much more relevant real-world way. And these are some of the students that we worked with in putting the data into Wikidata. And this is what they said. After we analyzed the data, we learned the stories of the witches and learned about European culture. They had wanted to do a happy project, but they laughed about it afterwards and said they finally learned much more about these cultures. And so they did find it a meaningful, if slightly grim, topic to talk about, because obviously all these 3,219, or a vast majority of them, were put to death at the end of these witch trials. So it's quite a lot of death and burning that's involved in this database. And essentially, they also said it's quite useful to put learning practice into the real world so that they can see the outcome. And again, this idea of feeling proud of their work. And they learned a lot. So you can look up an item of data. Q276382 is the alleged witch Isabel Gowdy. And you can take the data from Wikidata and show it in Resonator, which makes full sentences. It gives it where available. So she was born in, and insert linked open data of the year she was born and the place that she was born in. And she died in 1662. And so it's pulling all this information together about what she was convicted of, what her place of birth was, and any other information that we can find, and looking to link her up with her Wikipedia pages as well. So that's what we ended up adding in those first 2 years. 3,219 unique items of data in a multilingual format of all the accused witches in Scotland. 2,356 individuals involved, all linked up, and 3,210 witch trials themselves, all linked up. And then we started thinking, what can we do next? We can add occupations, places of residence, their social class, whether they were married, whether they had family members, because we want to link to things, not strings, and all the different penalties and punishments that happened. And the project was a success over those first 2 years. And people were really happy that this amazing resource from 2003 was helping shed light on a little understood period of Scottish witchcraft and opening it up the whole period for further inquiry and research. And what happened next was that we were able to lobby for some money, because the one thing we knew was in that original data set, the Survey of Scottish Witchcraft, that was quite a rich piece of information, was we knew we had geographical information in that Survey of Scottish Witchcraft. The problem we had was there was so many places from the 16th century that we weren't sure whether we would be able to find them on modern maps. So what we wanted was we wanted to hire a student that had knowledge of GIS and knowledge of geography mapping, in order for them to hunt down all the places mentioned just as text, and try and find all those text names on old National Library of Scotland maps and wherever she could find the information, so that she could add a coordinate location to all of the places. Because every single accused witch in Wikidata, each of them had a place name mentioned. And we wanted to geolocate every single accused witch so we could plot them on a map for the first time. And so that's what we did. and we hired a student called Emma Carroll, and Emma Carroll blogged about her experience, and she was hired about June last year, June 2019, and she blogged every week of her 12-week internship. That's her there, just with her head down. So she was a geography student who just graduated, and it was just a really impactful 12 weeks where she spent 6 weeks of her internship hunting down all the places mentioned in the Survey of Scottish Witchcraft and giving them a coordinate location. And then she spent the final 6 weeks creating visualizations and building a website with the help of a couple of developers in our office so that we could have a home for these visualizations. So this is all Wikidata driven. And we've created this website called witches.is.ed.ac.uk. And essentially, all the places of residence are now geolocated on this map. And now you can go in and you can see the numbers of accused witches for different places in Scotland. Now, the purple color means that we have male accused witches and female accused witches in the same location, because we've if it's just orange in color, then that's just female, or slightly reddy orange color for female accused witches, and then you've got the male accused witches in blue. So when you've got the two together, blue and reddy orange makes a nice purple color. But you can see, like, just in the Old Dearn area, got 23 accused witches. And we've pulled together the main sort of points here. But if you want to click on more info, it takes you through to the original Survey of Scottish Witchcraft database, where they've got a lot more information and links to the original record as well, and mentions of their trial and who else was involved in their trial. So the original database is still there, but it's been given a new lease of life. There was a bit of a fear that it would be mothballed and the server shut down because no one was paying enough attention to it. But now, because through Wikidata, we've got people all over the world now using this witches site in order to engage with the data. And we were able to add filters so that we could add gender and social classification. And then you've got occupations and whether they've got a Wikipedia page. And you can unpick and we've added all sorts just in a 12-week period. Detention locations where they were detained in prisons, trial locations, death locations. We added even a timeline as well, because one of the last things we added was the dates of when these trials took place. And then there you can see that's quite powerful. All of the accused witches over the whole 1563 to 1736 period. So if I click in the filters section, you should see the timeline here. And you can just see it's a bit sort of, that's one thing we'll probably need to improve on. It's a bit sticky. But you can see how that number changes over and it sort of balloons around 1650. There we go. So right there. So it goes from about 1600 to 1650. Suddenly you get loads of cases appearing. But yeah, so this is a resource that sort of was covered by national newspapers and national radio and international newspapers. But what was more important for me was that local newspapers were covering it for the first time. And you were having people in the north of Scotland, like around Inverness, interested in all the cases near to them, and asking people in local history groups and libraries to see if they could find out more about these cases as well. Anyway, that's
that is quite impactful.
Say again?
I'm saying that's quite important to really have the small communities engaged, not only, as I said, the big newspapers.
Yeah, it was like we were getting contacted by schools and primary schools and local newspapers and local history groups and people that do walking tours. They were all really interested in finding out about witches, accused witches, we should say. We should always say accused witches, because these were just regular people that were just suddenly had the finger pointed at them that said that they weren't godly enough. They were doing something macabre or magical that was and suddenly they were on trial for their life. So these stories bring it home to people when it's local to them, and it's just down the road from where they live, and they find out about these stories. That seems to really resonate with people.